Good day, everyone. My name is Aaron Dimas, student ID 22049118, and this is my presentation for MGT 3024 Business Ethics and Sustainability. Today, I'll present my analysis of the moral issues in fast fashion, my critical reflection on AI-generated ethical responses, and explain my independent thinking throughout this assessment. This also covers Section 1's theoretical analysis and Section 2 AI engagement process. Let's move on to Section 1. The moral issue I analyze is fast fashion model, particularly focusing on Shein, based on an article from Anti-Slavery International. I applied three ethical framework: Ross's prima facie duty theory, Kant's second formulation of categorical imperative, and, and ethical relativism. I also developed and defended my own moral position. Let's move on. The first one, we're using Ross's framework. I identify multiple conflicting duties. The duty of non-maleficence requires not harming worker through exploitation or causing environmental damage. The duty of justice demands fair distribution, yet fast fashion concentrates on profit while workers bear costs. However, the duty of fidelity suggests companies keep their promise to provide affordable clothing. Ross argued that when duties conflict, we must balance them. In this case, the harms of exploitation and environmental damage are so severe that non-maleficence outweighs the duty to provide affordable products. Let's move on to Kant's second formulation, where it requires treating humanity always as an end and never merely as a mean. Fast fashion companies treat workers as instruments for profit, paying low wages and providing unsafe conditions. Consumers are manipulated through marketing that undermines their autonomy. Communities affected by pollution are treated as externalities. Some argue that workers consent to employment, but genuine consent requires real alternatives, which often doesn't exist in developing economies. Kant's framework condemns fast fashion and fundamentally violating human dignity. Let's move on to ethical relativism, where it offers a partial justification by pointing to cultural differences. However, relativism cannot excuse fundamental rights violation or environmental harm. Pollution and exploitation cause real suffering regardless of cultural context. As for my position, fast fashion is morally unjustifiable. Grounded in deontological ethics, I argue that exploitation, environment degradation, and consumer manipulation constitute fundamental moral wrong. The right thing to do is systemic change through corporate responsibility, government regulation, and consumer action. Now, let's move on to Section 2. For Section 2, I use DeepSeek to explore moral issue from an article on Shein. I started with critically evaluate the moral issue and explain what is the right thing to do, then drill down 10 times. Each prompt challenged the AI's response based on module knowledge, applying theories including Ross duty, Kant's formulation, utilitarianism, and concepts like consumer culpability and moral decoupling. This process revealed several insights. The first, AI initially provided comprehensive overview but lacked theoretical depth. My prompt pushed for deeper analysis. Second, Kant's framework requires nuance on vulnerability, not assuming all stakeholders are equal. So as for the third, relativism cannot justify exploitation despite cultural difference. Fourth, utilitarianism Calculation of aggregate happiness faces problem with distributional justice. Finally, the AI explained how consumers use moral decoupling to justify purchases despite awareness of harm, and how consumer culpabilities must understood within systemic constraint. Through this drill down, I learned that ethical analysis require persistent questioning. The AI's initial responses were often superficial. I needed to challenge assumption and demand theoretical integration. I also realized that practical solution require systemic thinking. No single stakeholder can fix this alone. Most importantly, I understood that ethical judgment must be grounded in theories while remaining sensitive to real-world complexities. This process deepened my understanding of how critically evaluate moral issue in business. In conclusion, uh, fast fashion severe moral issue that demands urgent attention. Ross's framework reveals conflicting duties, Kant's formulation condemns dignity violation, and my defended position calls for transformation. The AI engagement process deepened my understanding through persistent critical questioning. The right thing to do is systemic change requiring corporate, governmental, and consumer action together. So, thank you for listening.